Hello everyone, this is Blender Guppy. In this video, I'm going to recreate the building section or the floating building section that I posted in Twitter and Instagram. And this is that model. So this is saved as City Black. And I try to render this. So this is mostly for uh, far away renders. So you position this at farther than mid, and of course this is more suitable to far far away renders because of the quality of the textures when you try to zoom in, and also the perspective. So at far away distances, you can see that it gives us the illusion of this high-tech buildings floating, or high-tech buildings attached to some bridge and then floating, and we have also the floaters, which kind of indicates like there's traffic, floating ships traffic. Okay, so let's try and recreate this, and starting with the cube, flatten it. So this time I'm not going to put symmetry, and we're going to create asymmetrical detail. So random scatter, and I'm not going to use mesh or collection. I'm just going to use cube and increase this something like 200, and mess around with the seed and also with the scatter scale. So this is X, Y, and Z. There should be an X here, but it's not showing up. This is probably because of the size of the redo panel, and the X let XYZ letters are not included. So I'll check it out and try and change this for the next update if I can change it. So much like random axis extrude, you can see the XYZ letters. So random scatter, Z axis. Okay, Z axis. We have 1.5. So try and loosely follow what I do, because we're dealing with random elements and you will not get what I am getting. You will not get the exact same patterns that I'm getting. Okay, so I'm going to try and render it at this angle, so I'm looking at it this way. Let's try this one and select the result and apply the same scatter effect to this. Random scatter. Let's start at a lower number and decrease the Scatter size, try 800, 0.4. This way, this one, I'm going to choose the source mesh again. Probably the probably the second result, and use this for the flying cars or ships, random scatter, and cluster margin offset explode, and decrease the size. Control Alt 0 is how you pose the camera to look at the angle of the viewport. So Control Alt 0, let's pose this. Okay, so that is the camera, and let's try and stick the camera to the angle. So if we move it, it's not going to go away. Lock camera to view. So I'm using track lights for this, but you can also use view and camera to view. So we're in camera mode, and when you move the model around, camera stays. If you try to turn this off, you can just zoom in and zoom out, and it will affect the distance of the camera, the margins of the camera based on the viewport. Turning this on, you will zoom in, and you will affect the distance of the camera to the object and also the rotation. So to fix the margin, you turn it off. When you find the margin, you turn this on, and then you can post the scene. Okay, F9. So it's gone. Let's do that again. Cube, and so point never 0, because you will have cubes that will have 0 mass, or yeah, 0 area. So 0.001, and then this is 0.05, 0.08. Can always change this later if it doesn't track well. Oops, what is this? Oh, the size seed. Okay, there we go. Now we need to uh, give this a texture. So let's just save this as city black, and select everything. I'm going to give it a primary color, diffuse color, using to give each building or each block or each cube its own shade. So black and white. So essentially, saturation is set to 0, 0. Min max is set to 0 and 0. And just play around with the gradation here. If you use hard gradient, this means that for the value of 0.7 to 0.9 is going to be divided to four values, and then that will be used for the color, for the random seed. So two colors only means that the random seed will randomize only from zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.9. So three colors means zero point 0.7, zero point 0.9, and then the middle of that. So let's not use hard gradation and only use soft gradation. Increase this uh, set this to 0.6 and 0.95. You can always change it back later. And set this to island. So instead of per object, this will change the color, vertex color, per island or per cube, since each cube is a separate face island inside the mesh. So island. You can always change it later. So let's use a sky HDRI. It's okay. Control C for camera view. And let's go to shading and new. So turn on Node Wrangler in your add-on in user preferences. So F4 in the viewport preferences, go to add-ons and Node Wrangler. So turn it on. It comes free with Blender, and you will have options like this in the. You will have new options in the composite and in the shader nodes window. So this is a new option. So attributes. This is the vertex color that we assigned later. Earlier, I mean. Put it on the base color and see the change. Okay. I'm going to multiply AO. Set this to multiply. Okay. So if I accidentally talk while the viewport is rendering, you might see the audio breaking up. That's because my audio is tied to the GPU noise cancellation. And I sometimes forget that I'm not supposed to speak when the window is rendering. So okay, let's stick with that. So for this next part, we're going to use the texture. If you want to, we're going to use a texture for the micro details. If you want to use random flow for that, then go ahead. If you want to use geometry for that, go ahead. But I'm going to use textures. So if you want to use geometry, you can always do that using random flow. But for this next part, I'm just going to use texture. You can use patterns baked from random flow, from using random flow. There's a video on that, past video on that. So essentially, you can create patterns much like J's placement to create mechanical patterns like that and bake it and use it on objects like this. There's a video for how to bake it symmetrically and asymmetrically. But for this, since I haven't created my own pattern using random flow, I am going to eventually create and share it in Patreon. But for now, let's just use J's placement, the ones that I've saved anyways. So I basically just created like wait a minute, where's the oh, there's only one. Select everything and copy material to selected. There we go. Okay, let's see if it worked. Control T. That's with Node Wrangler. So we're not using UV, we're going to use object mapping instead. Open and go to your um, um, textures. So I'm just going to use JS placement. Flat flat is for UV. Since we're using object mapping, we're going to use box and set the blend to whatever. Since this is so far away, essentially this is going to get rid of uh, the part of the textures where there's the seams are too obvious, where the pattern of the images breaks up and where the seam is obvious. So you can use this to get rid of that. But since the model is too far away for the texture to be for those things to be recognized or seen, you can just set it to 0. So I'm just gonna use zero point 0.4 or something, or 0.5, and multiply and control it using color ramp. So we can use other things like add, Control Shift T to view the textures using to view the flat textures without the effect of the shader. So if I Control Shift T on ambient occlusion on the attribute node, the ambient occlusion, and on this part here, and then so this feature is with Node Wrangler, and this part here. So you can see I can easily can also use generated event. Okay, let's just use add instead of multiply. Okay, so we need those details to stand out since we're not using um, geometry for the detail. We're going to instead use the texture as a bump. So vector bump, set it to height. I don't know why this defaults to normal, but set it to height, and let's view the result. Okay, 0.5. How about 2? Is it too much? Depends on your ability to make the scene more believable. It isn't about the value really. It's about the result. Let's try 10. 10 is too much. You're going to have a lot of dark areas. Also, this will behave very bad in lighting conditions because of the too much. So much you can have probably is 1. And then we'll go for the lights. Okay. The lighting, we're going to use J's placement instead. Uh, Again, uh, I duplicated it because I'm going to use a different scale for the lights. So for the lights, we're going to um, connect this to emission. Use a color ramp to drive the textures again. Press backspace to set it to default. That is another node wrangler feature. And let's see the result. Let's change the color. And there is some subtle gradation. Let's use constant for flat gradation or hard gradation. Change the light to something like blue. And scale 4. Okay. Let's try to make the scene moody and using other lights. Ooh, you might need some lotion for that. Okay. So the sun is on that in that direction. Let's try and fix the light. So the light is. Let's change the texture. I think I have a lights texture here. J is that grid. Okay. Let's change it to. This is a collection of dots and squares and diamond patterns, but they're too tiny. Okay, let's just use the previous. Okay, I forgot. I'm speaking when I'm rendering again, so sorry about that. So we're going to fix the. I'm going to fix the lights. Okay, the textures are looking uniform. So what I'm going to do instead is um, use 2 layers of this texture. One to create the huge areas to light up, and then from that area, I'm going to multiply light, the resulting lights. So let's create the large sections to be lit up. So it wouldn't look like it's being dispersed in the same area, or it's equal. The lights are being repeated as pattern in the model. Okay. So for that, we're going to create large sections using uh, the initial texture. So that area is going to be lit up, and then we multiply another one here with a smaller uh, texture texture scale. There we go. Let's try one, and let's going to affect the first texture to make it uh, bigger. So there we go. We fixed the initial problem. So this section here creates the, so this is our normal detail to create to break the flat areas of the mesh. And this is the first section of our lights to create the large sections that will be lit up, and then those large sections are then multiplied by a smaller scale text displacement texture to create that. Now we have, and now we have this. Okay, let's try and actually, I'm going to join this into a single object. Oops. Join objects, cube. Is it the same? Is it still the same thing? Yeah, I think so. And then put an array modifier. Get it closer. 3. Now I'm going to fix the camera to make it bigger. Now for this part, I'm not an expert on this part. I'm walking on eggshells, so correct me if I'm wrong. Um, okay, now let's play with the lighting again. I'm sorry. Let's play with the lighting again. I like this one. So let's try and render this and also composite this. So for the composting, I'm just gonna borrow one from my old files. Okay, let's render. So this is this might be just a part of your work. Then you can create other elements in the scene, like other structures or something like mountains here. So a taller mountain than the floating city that will make it really make the planet that it's on look really imposing, and some floating motherships here, and also other elements. Um, so, but yeah, this with yeah, using this on your movie or your artwork, it's already presents some believability on its own. The picture should not linger around because the viewer might, of course, really study it and pick out the weaknesses. But if the ship is just passing through slowly, even slowly, this can already work. The our ships in this lighting looks like floating debris, but still okay. The city works probably on gravity, which I think. So if I make up a story, I think the city has gravity for this side and this side and this side, which might make it confusing but really interesting. So the colonies are all uh, they're starting to break down because of time, and this is probably their trash just floating around, still being affected by gravity, and eventually will be let go. And if this is on a planet, it will of course fall down, something like that, like a cool background story. So this is my where's the backdrop? There we go. This is my composite node, map range. Okay, so let's pause it on a, there we go. So you can pause it, and actually this is useless in this scene, and this is just it, and this is also useless in this scene, and this is also useless in this scene. And this is glare. This is useful. This is after bright and contrast, and we should add it. And this is for creating uh, the lens distortion is for creating the chromatic effect on the edges of the picture. Composite node, and this is the viewer node. Home. So this is the base, and this is the vignette or vignette, whatever you want to call it. Vignette, yeah. And this is the original. This is the blurred, and this is the composite. This is lens distortion. We increase this. So 0.01. And this is for the lights, for the glare, bright and contrast. You can use 12. So just 10. And this is map range to isolate the highlights of the picture. Set the max to 1, and then set the from max to 1, then to max to 1, and then manipulate the from minimum. And then I attach a color here to make the white become blue, and this is the final result. You can complicate this after this setup. You can do your own if you want to copy it. Okay, let's look at the original render. So this is the effect that you get, and it's quite easy, as you've seen. If I wasn't teaching you how to do it, I'd probably do it in less than 10 minutes just to create this. Once you created this, you can of course save the object, and then save the scene, and then you can just reuse it on any of your other projects by appending this object, or Control C, then Control V on another Blender scene, or you can link the projects. There's a lot of ways you can do it. You can link the scene, you can append the objects, materials, you can import the objects. But for me, just save the blend scene and just append the uh, materials or whatever. Or you can just go to the so for example, you go to the city black, open the city black, Control C on this model, and go to your project that you're working on, and then Control V, and all of it's, I think all of it's, yes, it also came with its materials, the images, the image files, and all that things. So you don't have to go append. You can just open the file, copy it. It's Control O. So save. City black. Control C, and then go to your other projects. Control V. Okay. So that is it for this video. I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, use the comment sections below and the link in the description of the video. And again, thank you for the continuous support for the add-on. And I hope you have a wonderful time watching this tutorial. And see you in the next video. And you have a nice day.